Welcome back to the Marketing Matchup Podcast. I'm Joe Anthony, your host. I'm here today to help introduce episode 3 of season 3. This one is a special episode, folks. Last week, we were down in Boca Raton, Florida at the Wealth Management Edge Conference, getting a chance to do something really different and special. For the first time in my career, I was on stage with more than $1 trillion of assets represented with 3 CMOs of the bellwether firms in the RIA space, which includes Giombetti of WealthSpire, Kate Ardini of Mariner, and Tara Ryan of Cerity. Before I get to that special conversation, I want to highlight a couple other things that made the event so great. First off, on the opening night, Informa was kind enough to help us celebrate our PR Agency of the Year recognition with an opening night cocktail reception. We had about 350 of our closest industry friends and family out there to help us celebrate. And beyond that, we were able to do something even cooler the next day, a little more intimate, a little more special in terms of building community, which was the Marketing Matchup Meetup. That afternoon, we got a chance to sit down and chat with a lot of our industry friends and colleagues, ranging from those that are providing marketing tech solutions to growth officers to CMOs of different firms. It was a special time getting together, exchanging phone numbers and ideas. We look forward to doing more of those in the future. But again, the centerpiece of this event for me was a chance to do the main stage presentation with 3 very smart, talented professionals with Giombetti of WealthSpire, Tara Ryan of Cerity, and Kate Ardini and Mariner. The conversation covered a lot of ground. We're very happy to have the 3 of them with us. So enjoy this special episode of Marketing Matchup, everybody.
So you have the investments. We've talked about the investment tools you have available to you, the technology tools that you have available to you, the planning tools that you have available to you. All of it's for naught if folks don't understand what it is you do and prospects can't find you. Growth depends on marketing, and we know that RIAs are not natural salespeople. They're not natural marketers. So this next panel is going to be great. Powerhouse panel of chief marketing officers at some of the top RIAs in the country. To introduce the panel, I'm going to bring out my friend, Joe Anthony, president of Gregory. Joe, come on out.
Good afternoon, everybody. Hopefully you're all awake out there after a busy first day, first night here at the conference. We're going to dive into something a little different than our ETF panel a minute ago. We have an awesome opportunity today to hear from the women that are driving growth, change, development, basically transforming what marketing looks like at some of the largest firms in the RIA space. Delighted to have these 3 here. And I'll let them introduce themselves. I'm going to start with Kate down the end here.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Kate Ardini. I am the Chief Marketing Officer at Mariner. I joined Mariner about 15 months ago and loving this industry, loving these conversations. So really excited to share more with you today.
I like that you called yourself the new kid, by the way. I'm Angela Giombetti. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at WealthSpire. We're a different company than we were just 7 months ago. I have been with WealthSpire for 4 years, but in this industry for 20 plus, and excited for the convo.
Tara?
Hi, everyone. Tara Ryan. I'm partner and chief marketing officer at Cerity Partners. I've been there almost 3 years, spent my entire career in financial services and the last decade in wealth management, so really excited for the conversation.
Great. Well, this is not about me, this is about our panelists, but for context, my job is to run Gregory, an agency that works with the financial services community in a lot of different vectors, including RIAs, ETF issuers, and wealth tech firms. And part of the most fun part of my job is a chance to have conversations with leaders like this. Some of you may or may not have heard of the podcast I do called Marketing Matchup. In some ways, if you listen to it, this might feel like a little bit of an extension of that, because while I do have some prepared notes here and questions, I also like to go with my gut and cultivate a great conversation. So to start this off, when we're talking about this panel with the organizers, what does it look like at the view from the top, what the biggest firms are doing? Clearly, you have a lot of resources, you have a lot of priorities. Firms of all different sizes still can learn from you, even if they're not like Mariner managing or Tara's team managing hundreds of billions of dollars. So let's hear. So how do you set the table for marketing and growth today? I want to pick on Kate. You're the new kid on the block, a year on the job. You have the most recent context for building the priorities for RIA marketing within your firm. Walk us through some of the decision making you start thinking about how to set the table for creative marketing and brand growth.
Sure. So To me, that really starts with demonstrating that marketing is a growth driver. Marketing has value. We were kind of joking backstage before this conversation, talking about some recent work that we've launched and being really intentional, about connecting that to growth metrics. What are the signs that this is working? What are the signs that more people know us and ideally that they love us and they want to talk to us, right? But connecting marketing, yes, there's the art of marketing, which we all love. I'll speak for all of us. There's nothing better than compelling, beautiful brand work. But how do you really demonstrate that that brand work drives demand? And that's where people get to understand marketing and ideally advocate and love marketing. So that's been kind of my number one focus area since joining Mariner.
And let's go to Ange. Ange, you're in the process of almost reformulating marketing because your organization's gone through somewhat of a transformation over the last year. Talk to us about how you're prioritizing and the guidance you would give people when they're starting to think about how to prioritize their own marketing stack.
I have this sort of guilty pleasure of when you're going through a transaction like this and you need to rebrand. I think, there's a little bit of a blank slate. There's a little bit of, hey, we have an excuse to bring the stakeholders back to the table and make sure that we're all on the same page about who we are, how we talk about ourselves. Is it the same as it was before? And nobody can say, oh, this is a waste of time. This is just marketing. No. This is key to the three of us putting the plan together. So for priorities, it's exactly what Kate said. It is, what are we trying to achieve here? Who are we trying to be? Who are we trying to get in front of? And then it is our job. It's the how, right? Is it the AI piece? Is it the digital? Is it events? Is it content? It's all of those things. But starting, especially for me, like I said, that guilty pleasure of the blank slate has helped accelerate those conversations about priority.
And Tyler, how would you answer this question? What are you focusing on? How would you drive that conversation, help people organize how they should be thinking about their marketing and branding today?
Yeah, it's a great question. Look, I like to say that Cerity Partners is 16 years old, but traditional marketing is about 3.5 years old. And we have to make ruthless clinical decisions every single year about where we put our resources. So for a smaller organization, those decisions are going to have to be even more clinical and ruthless. And so, what I wouldn't want is the perception that just because our organizations are larger that we can do everything all at once. You can't. And so you have to make really thoughtful decisions. And that's how I've thought about the last 2.5 years at the firm, choosing 1 or 2 things every year that I really want to evolve and put effort and time into. And maybe one year that's actually the team, and it has been. And then the next year leaning into something different and building a sequence that's really intentional.
So when you mentioned building something intentional, I think one of the things that you think about from a marketing game plan standpoint is making sure you're building something that means something for all your audiences as well. And all 3 of your firms are playing on the advisory recruitment level, the acquisition level, as well as the B2C client cultivation level. And so, Ange, let's start with you on this question. When you think about the marketing mix, how do you divide that sense of purpose around the advisor as brand versus WealthSpire as brand, or Mariner as brand, or Cerity as brand? When you think about, coming into focus, do you lead with WealthSpire, or do you focus on the advisors and work backwards? What's the magic there?
I feel like this is like a layup because you know me so well. But at first, I got to say something because you mentioned bigger firms need more resources, more people, more tools. On one hand, that is true. Just by necessity, we are bigger, but we do have to make these really difficult decisions because I think there is this misconception because we have so much and we're so big, we can do it all, and that is not the case at all. So obviously, my heart is in individual voices. The 3 of us are all responsible for establishing, creating, cultivating that enterprise brand at B2C level, B2B. But clients who are at the core of this, and whoever it is, it's ultra high net worth, it's emerging wealth, whatever target you're trying to get in front of, it's still a human business. People are still going to want to do business with Steve in San Francisco because, wow, I saw him at this event and he really speaks to what I'm doing. So it's a balance, especially as you're getting bigger, and I have grown up from a smaller firm to a larger firm. But I think if we lose the the support that we're putting behind individual advisors to find their own voice, to find their own people, that it's a loss. So for me, it's always a balance.
And Tara, how do you wrestle with that in your organization where you're doing some of the same things? And how do you find that space between big Cerity brand sponsoring a tennis tournament and then helping, Steve in San Francisco with his brand presence?
Yeah, I mean, I think the short answer is if you have the luxury to do so, you build a team that can handle both at the same time. We've started to build that team, and 100% agree. You have to parallel path, and this is a human business, so we've every single year added tools and resources that our advisors can take off the shelf and use. We've added people that face off. I have someone on my team that acts as an outsourced CMO with our practices, and it's been an incredible game changer, but at the same time, never taking our eye off of where is that national brand showing up, and using that, right, hopefully if we do it right, to make first meetings feel like second ones.
So you said something about team. I want to come back to our next question, but I want to hear from Kate on this. When you think about, Mariner is obviously a few different channels to affiliate, and there's probably different levels to this for your firm. Walk us through, how do you balance that between like the big Mariner brand, and maybe it's a chance for you to even dive into what you're doing now from the brand positioning.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So agree across the board with everything my fellow panelists said. It's not one or the other. It's how do you find the right combination of both for that moment in time you're in and your business priorities. To me, yes, your advisors and your humans have to be the voice of the brand. That is what you are selling. You are selling humans, you are selling their expertise, you are selling trust and relationships. The one thing I'd keep in mind there is there's only so many humans and advisors, right? So you can only scale them so far. We can give them the tools, the technology, so they can spend more time with clients, but that's going to run out one day, and brands can grow exponentially, and there's really no limit. So how do you kind of find the balance between those two things is one thing that I think about. I think it's also about providing those advisors with the insights about the clients they want to serve, to show how the brand can actually help them enter new conversations, help them understand what's kind of in the hearts and minds of those potential clients. So we recently launched a new brand platform, and it's based on an insight research we did with both target clients and target advisors. And it was a really interesting insight, which is in this industry, we always think about like, oh, I just want to get to sending my kids to college. I want to get to retirement. I want to get to that liquidity event. The insight was really just when you arrive there, you're just getting started. And who's the right partner for you as a client to maybe think about your next step, or an advisor? So the platform is called You're Ready for Mariner. And it's been a really rich territory for us in that we're able to give assets, talking points, conversation starters to our advisors to help them leverage the power of the brand to create those personal connections. So it really is a complementary play.
And so, and what you're doing, and all three of you have comments about not choosing one or the other, but I think it also demands a lot of resources. And I think for a firm in this room that might have $500 million under management as opposed to many billions under management, they probably hear that and say, well, how do you find the time and resources and the personnel to execute on both of these things? And so real quick, I'm going to try to see if I can block the light to see this. Please raise your hand if you're in the room and you actually would say that organic growth is a top priority for your firm. Raise them really high so I can, okay, fair amount of people. Now, keep your hands up if you have a marketing director whose only job is to do marketing. It's a lot less hands, right? And so this is a quick illustration. We're talking about building a team. You talk about priorities, getting it done. I would go out on my soapbox to say, I don't think you could be serious about growing in marketing without staffing for it and having someone dedicated to doing it. And some people say that's easier said than done. So I'm going to go to one of my pet topics, like how do you build a team and how do you find talent? Because we're in a place where not a lot of people 25 years ago knew that this was going to be a booming industry. Certainly people weren't dreaming of becoming RIA marketers in college. So what do you do? How do you solve for that? And Tara, your team has grown, I think, to 15 right now?
Yep.
How do you find people? How do you cultivate and make sure they're the right fit in terms of being able to align with the growth, but also, we're in a space where some firms don't even have any marketing talent. Where do you get this talent from?
Yeah, I mean, we have an incredible HR team that we partner with, so I have to acknowledge that. But look, I mean, I think it depends on your size. And so for the individuals that didn't raise their hands, you're going to want a really passionate generalist that knows a little bit about everything versus if you have the resources to build a 5-person team, you're going to be deploying those individuals against your top priorities and where you think you can see the most growth. No matter what, though, right? Whether you have 1 headcount or 5, you have to trust that they're going to evangelize marketing within the organization. Because I don't want to speak for my fellow panelists, but probably for the last 20 years, at least 25% of my job is educating the organization I'm at, regardless of what organization that is, as to what marketing even is, right? Metrics around the work that we're doing, why it matters, why it's important, why it deserves a seat at the table when we're talking about growth. So whoever you hire needs to be someone that can speak that language and help you, whoever you are hiring that person, to evangelize the function.
And so, Ange, in talking about you developing your team and finding talent, what do you do to discover people? How do you cultivate? What do you let them specialize or generalize? What's the path for success? And I know it's a moving target sometimes.
It is, and I can't not say that technology has changed even the way I think about who we need for this team, and I also think for smaller firms where you don't have a marketing person yet, when do I need somebody? When is it too much for me? And I mean, I could give a couple of who are you following? Who are your peers or contemporaries where you're like, wow, I love what they're doing. I wonder what there's some digging to be done, time to be spent. But to answer your question, Joe, I love getting creative. I think that I'm always saying people that are considering a career in marketing or in financial services, try us out, give us a chance. If you're thinking financial services, you don't necessarily have to be an advisor. If you're blowing it up, you're killing it on social media, there's a gift there. And maybe you want to be an advisor, you're not sure. I think there's some exploration to be done. On the other side, you're not in financial services at all, but I'm starting a career in marketing. Take a look, because there's just opportunity here. We have an internship program. A lot of people reach out to me on LinkedIn. We were at a breakfast this morning that was blowing our mind at the talent that was on stage of basically rising seniors or seniors who were looking for a role. And we were just come check out marketing too. This is a incredible career for somebody. But I would not say there's a shortage. I would say that we're starting to get hype. Dare I say that this is starting to be oh, wait a minute, I could actually pursue this as a career, and it's adjacent, isn't that what they said? Adjacent to financial services as an advisor, but I think really rewarding.
So a quick take, if any of the FinServ Foundation students are in the room, there's very few people in the world of marketing for RIAs that have a true 15-year track record, so you're not that far behind. So you feel like you're coming in, there's plenty of space for growth, and there's tons of firms here who don't have a marketing person. So if you think about it as a career track, not only is there a need, but there's a real growth opportunity, I would say. So that's my plug right there. Kate, I'll let you answer that question too. What do you do as you build your team?
Yeah.
As you're there a year and change now. What are you looking for? How do you staff that?
Yeah, I always say first and foremost, I think, yes, you want to be a marketer, but you also have to be someone that is just naturally curious. And I think especially in an industry like this, that A is growing so fast, but we all have seen the stats. It's going to grow so much faster in the years ahead. So you need a team that's coming in and always thinking about what's next? How can we show up in a new way? How can we think about this differently? Why? Why have we done things like that before? Why shouldn't we do it this way? So that curiosity mindset is so important. To Angela's point, there's so much technology out there, so many tools. Yes, you have to know how to use all of those things and get the basics. But I think if you're naturally a curious person in a very high growth, high consideration industry, it's super important. And I think all of us, not just marketers, but every single person in this room being an advocate for the industry is critically important. To your point, Joe, maybe at the career fair, no one's coming over to the table from the financial services marketer, but I'd argue we're in maybe the most emotional and important industry there is. What is more important than your money, your family, your future. So I think when we can help people understand the difference that we're making and how we're building these long-term relationships, that's like a marketer's dream.
So this is a great setup because I think we've painted the picture of why it's so important to think about building a team for anyone who's looking to grow. But I want to pull this up to a higher level here for a second. One of the questions I actually asked in prep, and we're finally getting to the first question on the list, is that there's this little buzz going around. People comes up from time to time asking the question, can there be a household brand in RIA land, right? You know, we know financial institutions that have been around a long time that probably have some recognition because, you know, Fidelity's at the big green line and things like that. But within the RIA community, if you ask the 100 random people on the street, you're probably only going to get a few people that would know any one of these firms up here, even though these firms have a huge presence in the industry. What are some of the ingredients you think about needing to put together in order to be able to cross that divide from being a well-known commodity provider within the channel in terms of becoming something that the average consumer knows and likes and trusts? I know that's a pretty weighty thing. I mean, I'm going to pick on Tara first. So you're at Goldman Sachs, which is one of the financial service firms that does have name recognition in the market, doing something different. But now you're at Cerity. Like, is that something you strive for? Is it something you think about? What are some of the things people can do to really elevate that opportunity to create that sort of linchpin brand in the RIA space?
Yeah, I mean, it's not easy, but I think we all agree that brand is important no matter what size your organization is. Perhaps this is a contrarian view, but like, we're not trying to be a household name. I think, right, we would never have the resources to do that. We would be overshooting who we want to be in front of. You're not going to see our name on a stadium anytime soon. And there's intentionality behind that. But we do, again, we're going back to sort of the clinical nature of what we're trying to do, being really reflective about the personas and the audiences that you want to get in front of, and then putting all of your resources into that. So yes, it's a brand game, but it's a brand game with focus. So I would say we're not, like, you can stop as many people as you want. I don't really want everyone to know about us because that means I really overspent, and that's not doing the organization very well. So that would be how I think about that.
That's a good answer. And then Kate, you came from the world of John Hancock, and they spent a lot of money on things that were sort of brand building in a very obvious way. How do you take that experience into what you're doing now? And do you think about that as you help reformulate the brand position for Mariner?
Yeah, absolutely. So building on Tara said, being a household brand means you're famous. We want to be loved by the audiences that we can serve with integrity, right? So it's kind of finding that balance, and being loved means you're a powerful brand. And I'll go like a little bit marketing school nerd here, but there's been a ton of research about why you want to be a powerful brand for the right audience. There's 3 components that come into there. It's, are you meaningful? That means, is there some sort of emotional connection or exchange with the brand? Are you different? Really challenging in this industry, but it does make a difference. No pun intended. And then, are you salient? Are you out there? So you certainly have to be out there as a brand, but are you out there in the right places? And those most powerful brands see a lot of benefit from that. They grow faster. They can demand pricing power, and in a downturn, they just perform better. So you want to be that powerful brand, but you want to be that powerful brand for the right audience. So it kind of goes back to how we started, which is helping the organization understand the role of marketing, using those signals you're seeing. If you're not a client today, what are those things we're seeing that might suggest you might be a client one day? Are you a business owner? We might know who your parents are because they're also a client. How can we kind of introduce the brand in those smart moments so that when you are ready to move and make a decision, you know about Mariner? But I don't think everyone walking down the street needs to know about any of our brands today.
Yeah, and I would just add to that, like, I think brand can also be very squishy. And we haven't really defined it, but it hits at a couple different levels when you think about, right, brand for our firms. We're doing large national programs, but brand can also mean, right, how you just show up in your community. If you're a regional organization, right, using your network, being present. So there's other levels to think about when you can invest in brand. It doesn't have to be, right, this large national campaign.
So I'd like to get Angela to weigh in on this from a different angle. You had said in a previous conversation that brand visibility is more important than brand. talk us through that, and how does it apply for the average RIA firm out there?
When did I say that? Is there a date? I'm just kidding. I used to joke that when I started at WealthSpire, I never want, never, say never, say never. I never want to see WealthSpire on the side of a blimp. We literally just talked about blimps backstage, but I was like, because if you market to everyone, who are you really getting in front of? So everything that Kate and Kara talk about, I'm totally on board with it. But then, fast forward, we've got our brand on a race car, and a few months ago, we did our first collaboration with the car and the racing team at the Long Beach Acura Grand Prix, and huge bombastic event. And part of me is a little uncomfortable because I'm like, we are looking for this kind of familiarity it's like an if you know, you know. Mm-hmm. It's part of our network. We're really curated about who we want our brand to show up in front of. And now here's thousands and thousands of people seeing this WealthSpire car whiz around. And it occurred to me that we have moved into a different space, and I think that's part of getting bigger, which is the hospitality experience that we created was very much for our existing client. It is that ultra high net worth, multi-generational. We were able to give these people, select people, an experience that's going to be different from anybody else who's in the audience that could be a future client, but seeing that brand visible, getting that familiarity with a brand, because somewhere down the line, as we're continuing to expand services that serve not just the ultra high net worth, but much more the mass affluent, there's already this connection with that brand. So it's interesting, the growth trajectory of the firm, but it also makes me feel really good about, I'm still not going to put WealthSpire on a blimp. In fact, if you ever see that, you'll know that it was somebody else. But that's kind of how I feel about brand visibility and kind of seeing it over time and going, okay, yes, there's a connection, but keeping that brand awareness truly to the people that we're trying to be in front of.
So let's shift. We're coming down to 10 minutes left, and I want to ask a couple questions that lead more into specific tactics and maybe takeaways for our audience to think about how they can do some things. Three of you all touched on different angles, the idea of making the brand approachable. In your comments to my question about the national household brand. And approachability is so important in a trust industry, right? I mean, obviously, someone might know they need retirement planning help or might want to save for their future, but if they're intimidated, it doesn't necessarily help them get very far. So when you think about approachability, what channels of marketing would you recommend people cultivate? Is it publicity? Is it social media? Digital marketing? How do you think about making your brand available and approachable? Kate, you're nodding first.
Yeah.
I feel like you're thinking
I'll just say yes. It's everything you said,
Sure.
right? And I think at the end of the day, I'd argue we all want to be premium brands, which means we have the features that you want, and yes, you are paying us and you're getting value out of that, but does that necessarily mean you have to be a luxury brand and seen as not approachable? So kind of how do you find that right balance, I think, is critically important. And that's where understanding your audience and what might resonate with an emerging wealth audience, a channel, a message, might not resonate with that kind of established wealth audience that's thinking about it at a different life stage or life moment, frankly, just a very different number on the balance sheet. So how do you kind of understand each audience, prioritize? There's only so much money and so much time. So figuring out in terms of addressable market, where can we win? How do you prioritize there? And then not being afraid to test. I think that's been one of the most exciting things about being at Mariner is we are high growth and we are trying and testing everything. And it's super exciting because I always say, if you're not winning, you're learning. We're winning in lots of places. We're learning in a few. And that's once again, I talked about curiosity, that's a marketer's dream as well. So I think all of us right now, as we think about the transfer of wealth, as we think about how we serve an expanding audience in different ways, as we think about the role of digital in humans, that openness to testing is critically important in kind of getting to the answer you're looking for here.
So when you think about the question in terms of approachability, Ange, what are you thinking about in terms of execution, making WealthSpire feel relatable at a time of, frankly, massive transformation for your firm, where you can think it's bigger? How do you bring it down again so both the advisors feel comfortable as well as the clients, and that it's an accessible place?
It's definitely segmentation. I've jokingly said that we're like a little Optimus Prime, and I'm still getting my hands around this too. Obviously, I feel like this is still a very new organization coming together, these legacy firms. But we have an institutional business that's significant, and that audience is very different and requires different language, communications. The channels are going to look different on the private client side, whether it is the ultra high net worth or I'm just starting out that rising gen. You want to see faces that are relatable. That's where you can position those younger advisors. It's the type of content that you're putting out there. We just launched our Rising Gen platform. This summer we do, this is the second year, we did a financial foundations webinar. And the skeptic in me was like, well, it's going to be a few kids or grandkids of the ultra high net worth. There's like thousands of people that sign up for this because of the channels that we're using to get in front of people. So that tells me, hey, we're doing something right. It's like the testing you said. This is working because we're using the right channels and the right face and the right topics to get in front of the right people at the right time.
So I want to hear your answer on this, Tara, but I'm actually going to move along to an audience-prompted question before, because I think I'm looking at the time. I want to make sure this gets asked. I don't know if Jess is in here. A woman named Jess came up and asked me to ask this question. And the question is, how do you make use of working with agency partners? How do you make sure that relationship works, whether it's digital or social or PR or all the above? What are you doing to be successful there? And I'll start with you, Tara. I know you obviously have at least one agency relationship. What are some of those hallmarks, no matter what size firm you are, you should be thinking about in terms of picking a companion or partner firm?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's two ways to think about leveraging agencies. One is to augment, right, an always-on need that you have. Our PR, right, PR is a great example, where you're going to bring them on. And, right, my advice is you have to treat them like an extension of your team. Get that NDA signed and bring them in and have them in all the meetings. Versus you have an episodic need. You need to figure out who you're for and what your message is. You don't need someone forever for that. You can bring in an agency to, right, interview your team and help craft that message, and then you can say goodbye. So I would say in all instances, treating them like an extension of the team for whatever the time duration you have them is absolutely critical, because they will only do their best work if they can get under the hood.
And Ange, how would you answer that question on your end?
We actually went through a little bit of this exercise. We used to use external resources for digital, for all things SEO, AEO, and that worked for us for a time. But then you start to balance, like, what does it mean if we brought someone in-house versus having someone external? In that case, it just made much stronger case for us to bring in an internal team who understood the brand, and that was the right path for us. At the same time, PR is an area where I see the value in a PR partner not just being, oh, can you just get us in the news? I only want to be in Barron's or Forbes or whatever it is. I understand that this PR partner has connections within the community, has inside knowledge into the events that we should be going to, and is frankly putting us in front of firms that we should be having a bit more of a community element to. For that reason, we've always used an external PR partner.
Great. Any advice, Kate, on this topic?
Yeah, I mean, I think agree once again with everything that was said. But I think before you even think about an agency at the enterprise level, you have to say, what do we want to be known for, and how do we know this is working? Because those are the best relationships up front, getting really clear with your strategy, and then how can an agency, whether it's a creative agency, a PR agency, a digital agency, help you deliver on that? And then I'll also say, like, we talk a lot about human relationships in this business. You have to like the people at the agency, and you have to trust them. So it kind of goes to what we said before. You can be like the best on paper, check all the boxes, but do you have that trust that that agency partner can really help you grow and think differently?
So that's good advice there. And I think coming from my side as an agency partner for a lot of firms, I'd also say in the reverse is that the agency relationships are best maximized when you have someone committed to the relationship internally. And not every firm has a CMO or marketing director in their seat, but having someone who's locked in on that process helps make good use. And again, that could be digital or PR or whatever. It's important to have that. So there's just a little corollary statement to this insight here. So let's shift one more direction here. So you think about all the different things that people are talking about in terms of shaping the world of marketing. I have to ask a question around AI tools, because that's where the world is right now. AI, in my book, is not a replacement for good marketers, and it's not AI tools aren't by themselves a strategy. But could you give us examples of how you're incorporating some of the benefits of AI in any part of the marketing stack? And Ange, I'll pick on you first. Is there a specific area you see making the most impact?
I think it is a great tool to help things along. It can also be detrimental for the same reasons. Like at this point, I'll write an email and like second guess myself. I'll be like, I could do better than that. And I'll want to lean on AI and it'll start removing my voice for it. So obviously content creation, also visuals, I think graphics, design. Sometimes you have an idea of something you want to create, a podcast, artwork piece, a banner, and AI can be a great starting point. I would say that every job description that I put together for the team here on out, there's an element of you need to be familiar with these tools. You need to be okay using these and like really leverage them. And I always say you're not going to be replaced by AI. You're going to be replaced by somebody who understands AI if you don't at least embrace it. That's where we're using it. At the same time, and I've said this on a couple of panels because it's near and dear to me, but if you've never written anything and suddenly you're like an ebook, author and you've done it, like people know you could be AI savvy, so are your clients, so are your colleagues. So we've actually had to implement tools now where we're put content into an AI reader to say, hey, good try, love what you're doing here, but this is coming back saying it's about 50% AI created. Here, and it's education, right? Here's how you could make this your own and still use that.
Tara, do you have any thoughts on this AI question?
Yeah, I mean, we've obviously been using it. Our entire organization uses it. I would say in kind of a reactive way, where you're putting things into it, you're getting something out. We have actually started to build marketing AI agents, and I'd be lying if I said I know exactly how that's going to end up. But we are building them to augment each of the disciplines across the team. So we shall see. Maybe we can give you a follow-up on that in a couple months.
Future podcast episode, perhaps. So, Kate, what was Mariner doing in terms of implementing AI tools? Are you using things like Gamma for presentations? Are you doing anything with video clips or things like that?
It kind of goes back to what I said before about Mariner being very much focused on innovation, trying, testing. Like it's such an exciting time to be a marketer because you get to really be in the trenches on this stuff. So everything that was said here, agree with. The other part is at Mariner, if you walk into our headquarters in Kansas City, you'll see right behind the front desk, clients first. And I found AI to be a really amazing partner in building audiences, synthetic audiences, to really kind of test and understand the people that we are targeting. What do they care about? What's resonating with them? What's not? Yes, it is not real humans, but it's a great starting point that lets you decide what do you need to test, where do you need to go deeper on research, and what do you just kind of like put into market to see if it sticks. So tons of use cases, tons of opportunity, and I agree, the next marketer any of us hires has to be AI excited and has to have AI EQ, which I think is incredibly important as well.
Awesome. We're out of time, so I'm going to leave us with a parting shot. You can tell the audience anything you want them to think about marketing, any advice you have. And since you get to introduce yourself last, Tara, I'm going to ask you to give your parting shot first.
Advice on marketing. I mean, I think it's a little bit of what I said already, which is find that evangelist, whether it's a marketer or not, and work with that person to build a function from the ground up. And you can go slow. It's fine. Something's better than nothing.
Awesome. Ange?
I would say this is an exciting time to be a marketer in this industry. Shameless plug for anybody, again, who is thinking about a career, but we're at this place where we can have the harebrained schemes. We can actually help move the needle for our firms, and that's just such an exciting thing. So that's what I'll leave.
Yeah, and once again, it's be curious, be excited. This world and space is changing every day. This panel was called The Playbook. If we printed the playbook, we'd print it again tomorrow. So it's changing really fast. And to me, there's no better time to be a marketer in this industry.
Well, there's very rarely is there a chance to have $1 trillion plus of assets under management represented on one stage in terms of the marketing function. So give these wonderful professionals a hand. These ladies are awesome. Thanks so much. Enjoy lunch, everybody.
Thanks for listening to Marketing Matchup, a production of Gregory. If you like what you heard, Please listen and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.